Hello, this is Mike Burek, your host and producer of Knanitsia, The Well, a podcast series about topics of interest to the global Ukrainian community. Today is Tuesday, January 21st, 2025. This episode is produced for The Ukrainian Weekly, a newspaper published in English for the global Ukrainian community since 1933. Today, our guest is Kira Rudik, who is a member of the Ukrainian parliament and leader of the Holos Party. Welcome, Kira. How are you?
Hello, Mike. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you so much for joining us today. To start off with, can we get a little bit about your educational and professional background?
So I get my master's degree in Kyiv Mahila Academy in Kyiv in computer science. And since that time and up to 2019, I was working in the software industry. I was running the company called Ring Ukraine that alongside with Ring in 2018 was sold to Amazon for over $1 billion. In 2019, I joined Sviatoslav Vakarchuk in his run for the Ukrainian parliament and became a representative of the people. And since his departure in 2020, I'm running the party Holos in Ukrainian parliament and in Ukraine. Since that time, I'm working for the people and pushing for the democratic values in Ukraine and abroad. Since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, I dedicated my work to international arena where I'm working with different lawmakers on the important goal of confiscating Russian assets and using them for the sake of Ukraine. It's an advocacy campaign of making sure that the war in Ukraine is being funded with usage of the money that Russia has saved in the democratic countries. We are talking about $300 billion.
Kira, the last time we spoke, Ukraine had just been invaded by Russia in February of 2022. Quite a bit has changed since then. What is the mood like in Ukraine today? Do most people think that the Russian war against Ukraine will end in 2025? And are Ukrainians willing to make territorial concessions in exchange for a peace linked with security guarantees from the EU and the US?
Well, it's an important question that I do not think we have a good answer as of right now. Of course, people are exhausted, and of course, war takes its toll on everyone, especially on the people fighting at the front line. And we totally understand that. However, let me give you an example that last year, there was an attack on Kyiv, on the center of Kyiv in the children's hospital, Ohmadit. And though people were also saying that they are exhausted and tired and everyone is unsettled, but I have never, ever seen a human chain as long as that day when people were getting together to bring the water to the place where the missile hit, to help the kids, to bring food, to help out, to clean up the rubbles. And so I'm a huge believer in Ukrainian people and in our ability to survive so many disasters that come our way. So listen, there were not too many people that believed that we will last for more than a couple of days last time we spoke, right?
Right.
Right now, we are 3 years into full-scale invasion. We are alive and kicking, and we are ready to fight for our independence. However, we understand that geopolitically things change. But there is one particular question that comes when we talk about security guarantees, any peace deals, discussions, and negotiation. And this question is the following: who or what in the current world can make sure that Putin will keep his part of the bargain? Again, we are talking right now 1 day since Donald Trump's inauguration. There are lots of discussions in the air. However, there are some things that we can prove with the facts, not with the stories, but with things from our recent past. And these facts are: you cannot make an agreement with Putin because you don't know that he will keep it. You know for sure that he wouldn't keep it, and he will try to blame it on you. And we have seen it in 2014. And since that time, this appeasement of the dictator, look where it got us. So when we are talking security guarantees, we need to dig deeper and ask like what these guarantees are and who is going to go into war with Russia if they break those security guarantees.
Kira, what is your assessment of Ukraine's current situation in the war? Does the country have enough financial and military resources to win?
We are looking at 2025 with having certain support secured from our allies, from European Union in particular, from the United Kingdom. We do not know what's happening with the US support yet, and we hope that there would be a point of certain negotiation. But we know that with the usage of the money that is coming from the European Union, we will be able to last and fight for some time. And though the situation on the front line is really tough, we are hoping that if the support that is coming in time, we will be able to continue the fight.
And do you think elections might take place in Ukraine this year? And if so, would you run again for parliament?
I think elections would be only possible to run after any kind of the peace deal and assurances. And right now we do not see that like in the near future, right? Before the end of the war in Ukraine, there is no way of running the elections, though we are a democratic state and are working as such. And there are so many reasons that I can name them on both of my palms of my hands and even maybe more. The first and foremost reason of not being able to have elections before the end of the war is making sure that people who have the most right to participate in those elections are not able to do that. And not only to execute their right as to elect, but also to run and to be elected. And these people are fighting at the front line. Second point is that it is strictly forbidden by our constitution, and these elections will not have legitimacy. Third point, we have from 7 to 9 million of people abroad, and there is no way of how we are going to conduct the elections involving them as well. Fourth thing is we have no way of ensuring the security of the elections, and not only physical security, but also informational security. And given the way that Russia will obviously try to influence those elections that we have seen they doing in Georgia and in Moldova, then we absolutely see that we will have to rework of how the process of elections works, because we have some of the territories occupied right now and people moved around. So technically, politically, and legally, it will be almost impossible to do that. And then there is a question if these elections will have legitimacy if we go through all of these obstacles. So, last but not the least, if you go right now outside and start to campaign for yourself in the elections, the main question that people will be asking you of why are you standing there and not donating those money to support our armed forces? And they will be right, because right now we have one goal for all of us as politicians: to win the war, to survive as an independent state, and to make sure that Russia is punished for the crimes that they have committed.
And what is the political situation like in Ukraine today? Do you think some of the parties that were active in the last election in 2019 might dissolve, and will new ones be formed?
I'm absolutely sure that the war and then the end of the war will mean complete revamp for Ukrainian political arena. We will obviously be seeing new parties coming, and we will see the older players trying to regroup or reunite or figure out how to best represent people that want to take part in Ukraine's future. Because we don't know how many people would want to come back after the war. And again, our concentration right now is honestly on things like getting the weapons for our army, getting air defense systems so we can survive the day like where we are, getting financing so our pensioners will get pensions and the social payments will be through, and planning, like in Ukraine, we say crazy people plan for a month, realistic people plan for a week. So this is how far we go with whatever we can predict. And right now, my concentrations are 100% with our international partners, with new team of Donald Trump, trying to persuade them that Ukraine is worth investing in to fight, and that we have made impossible things possible for so many times that right now it is a way for Donald Trump to show himself as a really strong leader and as someone who has done something that the previous president was not able to, help Ukraine win. And weaken Russia, weaken Iran, weaken North Korea, weaken China in the matter. But we understand that it's not as simple as it sounds, and that's why the work continues. I want also to add the progress that has been done in terms of the confiscation of Russian assets. Since the day one, we have heard so many counter arguments saying that, well, the taxpayers of this and this country should not be paying to support the war in Ukraine. And we are saying absolutely yes. Just like you have this money by Russia in your possession that you need to confiscate and use them for the sake of Ukraine instead of going into the pockets of your taxpayers. That would be such a fair and just thing to do. So by this time, we were able to work with our partners to get the proceeds on the money that are being frozen. So they are used to give Ukraine additional loans in the amount of around 50 billion. So the support that is coming this year is coming partially from the proceeds of those money. But the fact is that we need to go further, and we need to make sure that we dig into the base and confiscate the money as they are. It will also be a very good sign for all the other aggressors in the world, showing that if you go ahead with the act of aggression that you are planning, the democratic system, where you, for some reason, are saving your money and storing your money, they will confiscate them from you. But we are somewhere within this path, and we hope that the leaders of the democratic world will listen to these arguments and will work with us towards this goal.
Has the economy in Ukraine held up during the war? For example, early on, there was great difficulty in trying to export grain through the Black Sea, but that situation seems to be changing.
Well, Mike, it changed not because Russia allowed us to export grain, right? It's because we were in this David versus Goliath situation. We were smart and innovative, and we used the marine drones in the Black Sea to push Russian fleet away and being able to export the grain that is going mainly to Asian and African countries. So that happened not because the deal or agreement with Russia worked. It happened because they understand only one language is the language of force. I want to remind everyone that in early 2022, there were some agreements on the grain corridor that Russia was constantly breaking. And then at some point, they just excluded themselves from the agreement. And we had to use the force to push their fleet out and to free the way for our grain export. So this is how it works right now, not because Russia allowed us to do that, just because we forced them to clean the way for our fleet to export the grain. And this is exactly only way how it will work in any other deal with them, including any possible potential peace deal. Because every time anyone is talking about, oh, we will sign something with Russia, the question is, okay, they will break it. Then what? Are you going to go to war with them, or they will show the world that any of your security guarantees don't mean anything? And again, there has been something like that in our past. There was a Budapest Memorandum in 1994 when Ukraine gave up second largest nuclear arsenal in the world for the security guarantees from UK, France, the United States, and Russia. And look where it got us.
Kira, unfortunately, we're just about out of time. I did want to ask you a final question. Do you think the EU and the US will continue to support Ukraine?
I think we are talking a lot about how the peace deal would look like and how the future looks like. And we are not talking enough of what would happen if Ukraine loses. And I think it's very important to keep in mind what will happen if we lose. And for that sake, I think the EU and in some way the United States will continue supporting us. Because if we stop fighting, Russia would not stop. We know that. We have proofs of that from our past. The question would be, would there be another states that will be willing and that will be capable of fighting Russia as good as we are fighting them right now?
Kira, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on Krynytsia.
Thank you, and glory to Ukraine.
Glory to the heroes. I have been speaking with Kira Rudik, member of the Ukrainian parliament and leader of the Holos Party. And this is Krynytsia, The Well, a podcast series produced for the Ukrainian Weekly, a newspaper published in English for the global Ukrainian community since 1933. Until next time, that's all for now.